So my plan was to talk about Jameis Winston and why I think he might have a pretty good year in 2021. But then unfortunately I woke up this morning and saw there was news about his number one wide receiver, Michael Thomas, is expected to miss the start of the 2021 season after undergoing surgery to repair the ligaments in his ankle in June. So he's supposed to miss around 4 months. Now, June, July, August, September puts him right around the first month of the season. I don't know when he's coming back, but I would assume that Michael Thomas is out at least the first couple weeks. I'm just speculating, but, it's not good news for the Saints, obviously, who do not have a lot of depth when it comes to the wide receiver position. So now the Saints wide receiver one is Traquan Smith. Behind him, they have Deontay Harris, Marquez Callaway, Jawan Johnson, Lil Jordan Humphrey, of course, Adam Troutman at tight end. I like Adam Troutman, but he's not like a proven commodity. I did like him coming out of Dayton, but he's not really proven much. He had some moments in his rookie year. Nick Vannett, the former Seahawk, behind him. Of course, they have Alvin Kamara, which is probably their best receiving threat now, but this is not good news for the Saints. And there are some veteran free agent receivers out there. We'll go over those in a second, but they probably need to sign somebody for week one, I would assume. So we have guys like Marquise Lee, the former Jaguar. Des Bryant's here. Des Bryant was on the Saints, and I think he tore his Achilles, so I guess that could happen. D.D. Westbrook, another former Jaguar. Alshon Jeffrey, who is, a bigger wide receiver, one type guy when healthy, but he's probably past his prime now, so I don't know about that. Golden Tate, he was on the Giants for the last couple of years. He was pretty good his first year in New York, but definitely slipped in production last year. He's definitely getting up there. And Larry Fitzgerald, obviously, is not going to leave the Cardinals. So, yeah, there's not many great guys out there, but I would think the Saints, based on what they have right now, a lot of unproven guys, need to sign some type of veteran if Michael Thomas is indeed out the first 2 to 4 games or so. So Drew Brees had been the Saints quarterback since 2006. That's 15 seasons, and of course, they had 9 playoff appearances. They won the Super Bowl back in 2009 against Peyton Manning's Colts. So he's out the door, of course, and it made sense. I mean, Drew Brees was definitely not the player he once was. He was declining before our eyes. It was kind of sad to see, and unfortunately, he could not win a ring, despite the Saints having very good teams from 2017 on. So the Saints did extend Taysom Hill for 4 years and $140 million. Now, 3 of those are voidable, so it's not as bad as it looks. I mean, it's not $140 million basically, but the Saints needed to do that to kind of limit their cap space because their cap situation was horrendous entering this offseason. So Taysom Hill last year started for Drew Brees for 4 games, and he went 3-1 in that time. I know one game was against the Broncos with no quarterback. I get that, but they went 3-1. They proved they could win with Taysom Hill, but there are limitations when Taysom Hill is your quarterback. I get that. So Jameis signed a 1-year, $5.5 million deal this offseason. So, of course, he signed a 1-year deal last year after leaving Tampa, signed another 1-year prove-it type deal to be the Saints quarterback here in 2021. So the Saints have still not officially named their starting quarterback, but most people, myself included, do believe Jameis Winston will be their quarterback majority of the time. Taysom Hill will have his role. We know that. And the last time Jameis started was 2019. Now, the Buccaneers went 7-9, and I have to preface, the Buccaneers had a pretty good roster in 2019, but it was not 2020's level. They had a pretty good roster, it was up and coming, but a lot of those guys were young. They got better when Brady came over. Of course, Brady has a lot to do with that, but it wasn't the same exact roster. But Jameis led the NFL in pass attempts that year, 626. That's a lot of throwing attempts. 5,109 passing yards, had the 33 passing touchdowns, a league-leading 30 interceptions, which was a problem, a bunch of fumbles as well, had 319 yards per game, which was the most in the NFL. So there was some good and some really terrible from Jameis Winston the last time we saw him as a full-time starter. Started all 16 games that year, by the way. He had that one beautiful touchdown pass last year in the playoffs for the Saints, but really did not play much for the Saints last year, unfortunately. So no preseason last year definitely hurt a guy like Jameis, who came over from Dirk Cutter's system, Bruce Arians with the Buccaneers, then comes over with Sean Payton. So not having preseason last year was definitely not a good thing for a guy like Jameis in his situation. But can the Saints realistically make the playoffs if Jameis Winston is their starting quarterback majority of the time? As I said, I think that Taysom Hill will have his role. He'll play about 10% of the time. But if Jameis Winston is their quarterback for, let's say, 90% of the snaps, 95% of the snaps, can the Saints actually make the playoffs? So honestly, I'm not as hard on Jameis Winston as some other people are. Most people see the turnovers that Jameis produces and say, that guy's awful, you cannot win with that. And I get that. That's definitely true to a level. You cannot win with those many turnovers. I get that. And if you look at Jameis's quarterback record thus far in his career, you've been proven right. He's 28-42. It's not what you want to be, of course. There was one season they went 9-7, I believe, or 10-6. I can check real quick. The Buccaneers went 9-7 in 2016. So I think they almost made the playoffs that year, but they did not. It was still a pretty good year, though. But anyway, as I said, the Buccaneers roster, when Jameis was there, was not to the level it was last year. I mean, their best player in their secondary at one point was Vernon Hargreaves. I mean, come on. So, it wasn't at that level, but they had some playmakers for him. Deshaun Jackson, they had Cameron Brate, O.J. Howard, Mike Evans, Vincent Jackson for a couple years. So they had some guys for him. It wasn't like they were giving him nothing to work with. But I do think the Saints offense is well suited for a guy like Jameis Winston, and I'll get to that in a minute. But Jameis has played for guys that love going deep often. That's what he did in college for the most part. He played for Dirk Cutter, played for Bruce Arians, guys that like to go deep and attack downfield, which I guess kind of helps a guy like Jameis because he has a good arm. He's, kind of accurate downfield. He can extend plays, of course, but at the same time, it can be his worst enemy because that really opens up the opportunity to throw more interceptions and hold on to the ball longer and cause more fumble opportunities. So for reference, there's a stat called intended air yards per pass attempt. So in 2019, basically the stat means the intended, like when the ball's in the air, how many yards is the ball traveling in the air on a pass attempt? So Jameis had 10.4 in 2019, which was the last time he was starting, of course. That was the second highest in the NFL, just trailing Matthew Stafford, who had 10.6. They were very close. Now, as a comparison, Drew Brees, of course, the Saints quarterback in 2019, that same season, had an intended air yards per pass attempt of 6.4, a whole 4 yards less than Jameis Winston that season. And 4 yards is not a lot, I get that, but that's on average. Like, that's a drastic difference, going a whole 4 yards down per pass attempt. So I know Brees did not have the same arm that he once did back in 2019, but that's kind of just the product of the Saints offense. Like, they don't really go deep as often as a guy like Bruce Arians or Dirk Cutter would. And that right there is the main reason why I think Jameis Winston may pleasantly surprise us this year. So if you cut Jameis's deep ball attempts in half and limit the time he holds onto the ball and take away the fumbles once again, then we may see a completely different quarterback. Now, Sean Payton's offense heavily relies on the drag routes, the slant routes, the swinging passes to the running backs, the quick curls, getting the first down, all that stuff of that nature, right? And I know Jameis has not been the king of accuracy. I completely get that, but an offense like this can only help a guy like Jameis Winston who struggles with turnovers. It also helps that he got to sit behind a future Hall of Fame quarterback in Drew Brees for an entire season, learn the offense, not have to play much, and learn about the different playing style, because Jameis Winston is going to go from a completely different playing style from a guy who was airing it out, the gunslinger type, to a more conservative type quarterback, I would think, with the Saints offense. And I'm not sure how much this will do for Jameis Winston, but after 2019 season, the year he led the league in interceptions, he had LASIK eye surgery, so that can only help him. I'm not sure how much that will help somebody, but it can only help to see better when you're a quarterback, I would have to imagine. So I'm not expecting MVP numbers from Jameis Winston next year. I'd be stupid to say that, but something reasonable, like 4,200 passing yards, 26 to 30 total touchdowns, because Taysom Hill will steal some of those. I get that. And of course, Alvin Kamara at the goal line. Let's say 15 total turnovers. Like, let's say he gets 11 interceptions and 4 fumbles lost. Let's put it at that. I know it's like, kind of hard to imagine Jameis going from 30 picks to 11 picks, but let's just say. And a quarterback rating around 95. Now, if Jameis Winston were to put up this stat line with a roster like the Saints, who, yes, they lost some pieces, but the Saints, for the most part, do have a good roster. There's no reason the Saints can't win at least 9 or 10 games. If Jameis Winston really protects the ball and does some nice things with the 4,000 plus passing yards, the touchdown total around 30, not turning the ball over a crazy amount, I don't see why the Saints can't be a pretty good team. Now, they play in I wouldn't say a very tough division. Of course, the Buccaneers, who may have the best roster in the NFL, do play in that division. But let's not forget, the Saints won that division last year. Now, I know Drew Brees was the quarterback for 12 of those games. I get it. But still, they won the division last year, so it's not like a guarantee that Tampa wins. Now, if I had to pick, I would say Tampa does win the division, but I'm saying it's not like impossible. So you have the Panthers, who, of course, Sam Darnold's there now. We'll find out what they are. But the Panthers are more of a rebuilding team. I like what they have going on right now, but it's not like the Panthers are going to be like a 12-win team next year. I don't see that happening. And then, of course, you have the Atlanta Falcons, who just traded their best player in Julio Jones. I know Kyle Pitts is there now. Their defense should get better with Dean Pease there, but still, you never know. The Falcons are not really a threat to me, at least, to win the NFC South. So it's not like it's the hardest division in the world. There's definitely worse ones out there. So if the Saints do make the playoffs, it might be as a wild card team. But once again, I don't see why they can't win 9 or 10 games next year. So that's pretty much my argument for Jameis Winston. We'll find out who's actually the starter for the Saints in week 1, because right now we don't know. You can speculate and say it's going to be Taysom Hill. You can say it's going to be Jameis Winston. We don't really know for sure. But I do think they need to sign a wide receiver for now. A veteran guy, whether it's Dez Bryant and Alshon Jeffrey, Golden Tate. We'll find out who it is. But I think they need to sign somebody because that wide receiving core right now is very young, very unproven, and not what you want to go into week 1 with. So we'll find out what the Saints do with their wide receiver situation. But that'll do it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a like and subscribe if you did. If you made it to the end, I appreciate that. And I'll talk to you guys next time.